Hello, everyone, and this is Daniel Michael with another episode of Main Street Universe. And today's issue is very, very important. Some people might think it's antiquated or from the 60s or 70s. And oh, well, now we live in the age of information, so we're too sophisticated for this. Not true at all. The issue is cults, and there are more of them around than ever, including some of those old ones you might be thinking about if the members didn't all die off. Are still around, and some of them changed names and actually have been in business for a very long time. These issues can bleed into politics, into business, and of course, personal degeneration and giving up personal sovereignty, which is really such an important point, and this might be a two-part series. Let's look at how cult-like behavior, even if it's not a full-on cult, can even affect mainstream religions. For example, there are people warring and killing each other and and have been for a very long time, folks, based on things like there's a sacred holy land, which mostly was just a misinterpretation of allegorical language. There's really no actual mention of a super holy land for us to defend, whether someone is Christian or Jewish or so on, whatever the case is. There are some messages in the Bible, and maybe Matthew and Micah and Deuteronomy and maybe Zechariah, that do mention sacred or holy place. But again, a lot of this, remember, it's 5 languages and maybe even more dialects separated until we get the documents even in English in the first place. So a lot of times what you have is a misrepresentation of symbolic or allegorical language, because there's some mentions saying it's for the sons of Abraham is the sacred holy places. But then what they forget, meaning, is there an actual tribe, a blood? So many people are into this bloodline, but whether it's for the occult, whether it's for witches, whether it's for special Christian families, it just keeps going. But then what they overlook, that one of the grandiose messages of the Bible, especially if you include the Gnostic texts, which were banned, that all of us are the sons and daughters of Abraham and have right to the sacred space. And that sacred space is that divine light that burns within us. And there are some modern cults, actually, that I will mention, so I don't just sound like I'm just focusing on religion itself, because there's a difference between, okay, something is taking on a cult mentality, because it can be at many, think of it as a gauge. It's on many different places that needle can point on that gauge. So there is one of the more just odd ones that I stumbled across this one a few years back, NXIVM, if I'm pronouncing that right. And that was the one where it pretended to be founded by a man, pretended to be all about female empowerment, and at some point actually was branding, that's right, like you brand cattle, branding the private parts of the female members, supposedly with a sacred symbol. And there's a modern day cult in New York, folks, sophisticated place, branding these women on their private parts, and the symbol, the sacred symbol, turned out to be the founder's initials. Wow, imagine discovering that. I would also like to say, because I'm not saying it as any kind of joke or lighthearted, intelligent, well-intended, compassionate human beings are more easily led into a cult. So if you know somebody, or if you suspect that you yourself are in a cult, folks, do not think, oh my gosh, what a moron, because they are not. Remember, so many of the cult members that have either taken their own lives or have done some other terrible acts that they later regret because their brains were hacked. Brainwashing is real. That oftentimes very intelligent people, remember, a lot of them were college kids going to very fancy schools, especially the ones you might think about in the 60s and 70s, and including the one I just mentioned, NXIVM. And if you're a compassionate person, you join a cult thinking, oh, well, maybe this is the answer. Maybe we're going to change the world, right? So I am saying that there is a cure for being in a cult, and I agree with Dr. Steven Hassan. I do not believe it's that old school grab and go. Now, sure, that might have helped people before, but I'm not going to go into that right now, but a much softer approach. You know why? Because that change has to come from within them. It's just like any addiction, folks. If that person doesn't want to change, no matter what you do to change their external environment, it could maybe work if they change during that time. But as soon as they get a chance, especially nowadays, they can just find Leader on their phone. Just like they can go down to the street and find fentanyl or a liquor store or crack cocaine or whatever the case is. When no one's looking, they're going to go back if they haven't changed from within. But let's walk away from that aspect right now and discuss a few more cults. There's the Harvest Christian Fellowship involved with orphanages, I think especially in Romania, the Children of God cult, which changed its name to the Family. Folks, they've been around a good while. I believe around the early 70s. It might have been before that. And by the way, actress Rose McGowan, if you remember from the show Charmed, she, as a little girl, was part of that cult. Now, it was of no fault of her own. They were known very much for human child sex trafficking, which has often been a lot of that in the news recently. Now, as an adult, she has nothing to do with it. She was sent over to America, and those ties, as far as I know, were broken well before she became an adult actress and Charmed and all that. And Universal Medicine was another cult. So you see, some of them have nice names. And a lot of them, when they get caught doing something, there's a lot of them that do this. They change their name to The Family. There's a whole bunch of cults out there called The Family. Maybe there's even some connection. Don't actually know that. But Universal Medicine, one of their conditions, again, started off friendly little community. But if you leave the cult, then you will have, this is what they told the female members, that you will in fact have a deformed or Down syndrome child. Wow. I mean, that's a lot, right? To tell somebody. Imagine if you grew up in that cult. Then everything, your job, everything is linked into that. So I recommend people check out Dr. Steven Hassan, who was once himself a Moonie. And if he hadn't gotten out of that cult, he even admits his brain was so hacked, he might have done something criminal. Turned out he did not. So I'm going to combine both from Chris Hughes and from Mr. Hassan, who are both excellent in both PSYOPs and cult behavior and identification. And this will be fairly brief. And I'm going to call it, we can measure it in petabytes. Your data bytes will be mentioned in petabytes. So there is the FATE model used by a trainer in the CIA, and that is focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. This is what you engage in if you're engaging in a PSYOP. And folks, people in a cult are not unintelligent. Hypnosis is real. Hacking the brain is real. And governments all over the world, including our own, have used PSYOP and propaganda. Y'all heard that word. All of these things. Bernays, Freud's son, wrote the famous book on how to influence the public through propaganda. And it's very, very, very real. Thus the importance of owning your attention and your awareness. And the byte part of it, I said theta bytes, like data bytes. The byte model is behavior, information, thought, and emotion. So these would be the 4 things you control. So behavior could be, is there an excess of them telling you what you are allowed to do and not allowed to do? And that can bleed, they all bleed into each other. How about, I've seen talk show hosts tell their listeners, do not watch this movie, I will watch it for you. That's cult-like behavior. I'm not saying that talk show host is evil or that he runs a cult, but you're drifting into cult-like behavior if you're encouraging people not to make their own assessment of the movie, the book, etc. Behavior. Now, people would say, well, what if a faith has disciplines? It's not about that. We're talking about social behaviors. You're not allowed to go there, not allowed to do that, not allowed to look at this. That can be part of it. Again, this is brain science here, so a lot of things aren't as exact, but you know when you're in the grips of an actual cult. Again, information. A lot of cults rely on isolation, though they need that less and less in the digital age because, as I've said before, leader is in your phone now. Father is in your phone now. The Children of God call. There are people that never met the founder of this cult, and they call him Father, and did their whole lives, maybe up until the day they die. For a gentleman they never met, but he founded the cult. It's still around. And anyway, then thought. So thought control, again, influence, attention, propaganda, and of course, emotion, because now you have to pull at their heartstrings and have them emotionally involved with the group. And what happens when leader is gone, let's say he passes away, and even before the group becomes little versions of the leader. So they begin to self-enforce or self-reinforce the values of the cult. Then there's, of course, are your finances pretty much all going through the group? Are they asking you to do, we're back to behavior things, so meaning social structure behavior, are they asking you to do things that could get you arrested? That could maybe even get half the group arrested for that matter. Are they asking you to abandon your family? Are they asking you to look? There's in the Children of God cult, they would say, almost viewing parents as oppressive, so the village should raise the kid. Now, there's a difference between the town or the village helping the parents raise a kid, or just sort of saying, well, sort of this letting go of the child and let, basically by extension, let leader raise him or her the way we see fit. And of course, the focus, again, getting people's attention, going to the fate side of the model. Authority, this is big for a psyop. Have a person maybe wearing a uniform, maybe wearing a doctor's uniform, maybe wearing a priest's robe. Give an opinion, backed by doctors. Now, this guy might just be wearing a suit. It happens in politics, right? Well, there's a guy, he looks good, or girl, and they look like they know what they're talking about. I mean, right now you could have a leader who's sending people to war, and then without doing research, they don't even know that he had dodged the draft 5 times when he was young, 4 times sort of pretending to go to college, and then 1 for a phony ankle injury because he got what I call the rich boy discount. 5 times, folks. Now, this isn't politics. I'm not talking to you about politics. I'm talking to you, but I know plenty of people that think that this particular gentleman, who shall remain unnamed, is some sort of brilliant general, even though he inherited $500 million and drove it into the ground to the point of negative $900 million, saved by some oligarchs and one bank that would loan him in a TV show. Anyway, and he's applying that same wisdom to another pretty important corporation. That's the importance of the information side of watching out for that. Where is the information coming from? Is it consistent? Is it only coming from the group? Like I said, so many groups. Then there are non-religious ones. There's an online one that just has people doing all sorts of crazy things, and they just want to belong to their other crazy friends. It's taking on all sorts of forms in the modern day, and they're actually growing in influence and number, meaning I don't know if there's actually physically more of them, but their influence with the modern social media, digital universe we live in, multiverse, their influence is growing stronger than ever without even in the beginning having to isolate folks from their family. They can isolate, in the bathroom and go, oh, let me look. Da, 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 da. I don't want my mom to see me looking at this. I don't want my boyfriend, girlfriend seeing me looking at this. So you can get that quiet time very easily with the new group. Going back to religious context, again, things like, and this can apply to any faith, folks, by the way. I don't want people to think I'm picking on Christianity, because I'm not. In fact, I feel very much a connection with Gnostic Christianity. But, God doesn't need a war. He doesn't need warriors. If we actually have to defend ourselves in a real physical way, that maybe changes the argument a little bit. The psychological systems written in the amazing sacred text, and in my opinion, it's what they were. They were psychological systems, as well as being mystical. Mention nothing about preserving, as I said before, a kind of holy land, country, world, or county. I was once at a sermon in Westminster, Maryland, and they were saying, let's take back Westminster for Jesus. I don't think the Son of God needs us to conquer Westminster for him. If someone claims that God needs you to die for them or to commit some terrible crime, as I said before, that is the sign that you are in a cult-like mentality. And again, if you're born into it, imagine how difficult it would be to even say whether this is a social, quote, norm or not. Now, on a lighter level, when people are engaged in cult-like mentality, sometimes it's honestly, they're not even bad people and they're just trying to get a pile of money, So it's like, so act now. There's some that kind of talk to you like, especially some ones that have been on TV, act now, we need your money before it's too late, while supplies last, with a lifetime guarantee, however long your life happens to be. And maybe you get a trinket or something is offered for your generous donation. I would as well like to say that the last time I talked to God, I was pretty sure that God did not need a new car, was not either a Republican or Democrat, and was not, quote, running out of time. That's my favorite stuff, is this end of the world kind of thing. Yeah, it might end, but are we really in a hurry? And for some reason, that means I'm supposed to pay you. So here's what I want you to do then. Here's what I do. How about that? I'll make it I, me, my statement. Here's what I do. Imagine a group of people coming to you and asking, quote, who are we? What does life really mean, unquote? Imagining yourself in the position of a god or a deity. So you send a prophet, maybe a son, maybe a daughter, who shares the wisdom of the universe, multiverse, through experience, compassion, bravery, and love, and giving, and all of those things. Then this group of humans, this group of people thanks you by killing their neighbor, stealing their dead neighbor's property, and claiming it as a holy land. In your name, of course, and with praise. I have casually heard people say, and so have you most likely, quote, this is the end times, or, yeah, it's the beginning of the end times. Everything's worse. People are getting worse. I'm like, have you ever actually read the Bible before? People were horrible to each other in every I mean, every possible way you can probably think of. It's all bad human behavior. Why? Because there's humans in the book. That's why. Now, and as far as whether or not you need to act now while supplies last before the end times, let's think of the Seventh-day Adventist. The world ended, by the way, on October 22nd, 1844. I guess they raised enough money to stop it. That's another cult trick, though, by the way, folks, is when they say, I know we said to raise a pile of money, the world was going to end, but your faith stopped it. And I guess so did your money. So I guess it stopped at that time anyway. And again, it was October 22nd, 1844. These cults are growing. Some of them have been around a long time. I mean, longer than you may even think. Some of them aren't fully 100% what I would call full-in cults. They don't have that entire sort of taking over the person's life. But some of them are in an information and propaganda sensibility because they're always trying to keep you afraid, right? They're always trying to keep you donating and scared. And to me, a genuine spirituality says, which, by the way, the Bible says more time than I think any other phrase in there, do not be afraid. How come they don't quote that one all the time and then ask for your money? From my new home in the mountains, Hagerstown, Maryland, I'm Daniel Michael. You're listening to Main Street Universe, the Shogun Network, reminding you that the mysteries and possibilities of the universe closer to Main Street you may have ever imagined. And remember, it is intelligent and compassionate people that can find themselves in the grips of being in a cult or a situation similar. Have a beautiful Monday.